Welcome to the Almost Perfect Podcast, a celebration of fuck ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Ha, I'm Bob Perfect and I'm a functional fuck up. Let's learn from somebody else's mistakes. And today we are learning from Haji Mohamed Dawjee. Now, Haji is a writer, although she's also been in an editorial role. She'll chat about that just now with the Mail and Guardian and stuff. But yeah, she's a writer, a columnist for EWN, and someone who really loves tennis, although we don't chat that much about it. She has a new book called Here's the Thing. It's her second book that she's written. It's a collection of essays and personal stories. And yeah, man, I enjoyed it quite a lot and really was stoked that I was able to get Haji on the podcast and get to know her a little bit better. Although you will really get to know her well if you read her book. Anyway, I need to let you know that this podcast is, of course, brought to you by you, which means you can support it by going to patreon.com/almostperfect. Alternatively, you can just go to almostperfect.co.za where you can buy some merch or just chuck me a couple dollars via Zappa. Anyway, that's that out the way. Here comes the Almost Perfect Podcast with Haji Mohamed Dawjee. So how are you living, Haji?
I am living good, Bob. I'm living tired. I am living with a toddler, which is a lot, but I'm also living with the lights on at the moment. So that's a good thing for a while. A little bit of a break from the universe.
So is load shedding not happening for you guys at the moment? Because here in Durban, we haven't had it for a while, which has been a bit of a blessing. But at the same time, I see it's starting again for us from today. So is there no load shedding at the moment? Because I'm going to have to get to know this again.
I haven't received an alert for today, but I know my sister in Joburg says they just haven't stopped. Like they've kept having it. And I think, I don't know, the Republic of Cape Town, the sacred Republic of Cape Town seems to have gotten a break for a while now because we haven't had it for a couple of weeks. So that's good.
Yeah, it's the small blessings about living in modern society is just being able to get work done for an entire day. It's like not having to take those 4-hour breaks and just figuring out, okay, now I can do some yoga, I guess. Or I guess for you, it's doing tennis or running errands.
Or starting to panic because you're like, okay, this is a great moment to do all that admin, but I need electricity and systems to be on for all that kind of stuff. So then you just sit in panic for 4 hours.
Yeah, it's been a nightmare, and I feel for everyone in Joburg. I'm actually going to be going there next week, so we'll see if those frustrations kick in for me as well. But let's start kind of at the beginning, I guess, which I was quite surprised to find out that you've actually got your bachelor's in music. So how did that all come about?
Oh, God, it's such a wildly boring yet entertaining story.
Well, I'm hoping it's more entertaining than boring.
So I've been playing piano, I think, since the age of 4 or 5. Okay. And I've been playing tennis just as long, by the way. And when I got to, so I did exams and whatever, and people of color weren't allowed to write the South African music exams. We had to go through a connection. We had a connection at the Trinity College of Music in London, and that's where we did our exams, etc.
Okay.
So when I was in my last grade for piano, which is the 8th grade, I had to leave tennis behind and say goodbye to my burgeoning, I'm sure, what was going to be a successful tennis career, and finish up this piano thing. And funnily enough, when it came to studying music, my dad was heavily opposed to it. So I studied law for a year at the University of Pretoria. Okay. When I say study, I use that very loosely.
Was it one of the situations where he just wanted you to have like a real degree behind you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I got this really great. So my piano teacher who taught me from, the 1st grade in piano to right until the 8th, just before I finished, was this really old woman, and she was like a legend. She'd gone through generations and generations and generations of people of color who played music. Like she was literally the only teacher.
Amazing.
She passed away because she was about 80 or something by the time I'd reached grade 8. And this was me now in standard 9 school, grade 11. So I found this really wonderful, my dad found this really wonderful Polish woman, and she started teaching me. And when I was done writing my exams or whatever, she submitted all the results to the American University in Dubai, which, I mean, at that time sounded wonderful and exotic. I mean, you couldn't pay me enough to go to Dubai now, but it was,
I agree 100% there.
full scholarship, like whatever. And she was like, I did it for you and you've been accepted. And right there and then at the dinner table, as we were celebrating me being done with my 8th grade in music, my dad was like, absolutely not, that's not happening. And so I had to go and study law, and I didn't. I didn't study law. Learned a lot about how to break the law during that year, but not much else. And then I got kicked out. I got kicked out of university, and I had to stay out for a year. And then I had to write a letter to the VC to ask them to please welcome me back. And that's when I went and studied music.
And was your dad like more happy with it then, or what was that situation like?
No, he wasn't happy about it. I think his dad was sort of riding his case a bit and going like, just, let her go study what she wants to study. She's good at it, whatever. And so he did. But I was just so over the institution at that point as a whole. And studying music at a very, very white Afrikaans university as a person of color came with its own challenges. And I haven't played classical music since. And that was in 2000. I graduated in 2004. I haven't played a classical piece of music since. So yeah.
Did it just kill your joy for it?
Yeah, it was horrible. It was just completely horrible. Just to be made blatantly aware of the fact that you don't belong somewhere. People like you don't play music, mostly classical music. It's not a thing. It's not what you do. It's not what you study, etc. And it just kind of broke me. So, I mean, I got my degree. It was a piece of paper, and I literally handed it to my dad, and I said, "Here's your degree," and that was that.
Sheesh, that's rough. I'm sorry. Like, I'm so sorry you went through that. But like, your dad and you seem to have a good relationship, but also, I guess, somewhat trouble because, in different generations, different kind of hopes and dreams for what he obviously wanted for your life. But as time's gone on, I guess you probably met his desires a bit more because you then went on to study journalism and obviously become a journalist. So was he a bit happy about that?
Yeah, we didn't. I mean, my dad and I think my dad died in, what is it now, 2022? He died in 2020, April of 2020. Yeah. And I think for 5 years before that, him and I started to have like a proper relationship.
Okay.
Just like a really good, sort of solid, proper relationship. And yeah, he was supportive of my journalism career and whatever, and always my biggest fan and read all my stuff. And, he was a very, very clever and witty and very funny man. We'd joke about stuff all the time, and he'd joke about what he wanted me to write and, stuff like that. But it was literally was about deep into my career already. So like 5 years that our personal relationship really, really got sort of going and got, some kind of traction and some kind of momentum, and where none of this other stuff bothered us so much anymore. And we knew who we were as people, and it all sort of came together.
Yeah, I like that because I think that does take time. I know my mom and I, like my mom's always been pretty supportive of me, but hasn't always understood my life choices. That's for sure. And it's led to some interesting, I would say, conversations, but the truth is shouting matches. And these days we definitely don't do that. We get each other. But I also understand her a lot better now. I think growing up helps you understand your parents a lot better.
Yeah, no, it does. It really, really does. And like you say, different generations, eh? Like he came with his own struggles. He grew up in a shack, like in a township. It was hard. He did all the stuff to make something of his life. And I guess the pressure is always there of knowing that you kind of want to know that you didn't do it for nothing.
Sure. And then also that you would be secure financially.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think when my first book came out, he was like, I don't want to say satisfied, because that would seem like he was unsatisfied a bunch of times, but I think he felt comfortable. He felt confident because he was like, okay, like you're on your way. You're okay. Well,
it's like a tangible piece of legacy.
Yes, exactly.
Do you see the written stuff? Well, not the written stuff, the copy of the stuff that's in in print is what I'm looking for. Do you see that as being a bit more important than the online stuff?
No, not at all. To me, it's all the same.
Okay.
It
You don't
really
get
is.
like a bit of joy, like just holding the book in your hand, knowing like this is a thing that will,
Of course,
once the electricity goes out, you know, we'll still have books.
of course, there's definitely a sense of like accomplishment, because you put like, as a writer, you just sit down, you put your heart and soul on the page and whatever, and at the end of it, you do get a book, and so to have something tangible to sort of hold and be like, I made this, kind of thing. That's quite a wonderful feeling. It's quite an amazing feeling. But I mean, once it's made, it's made, and it's kind of not yours anymore. So the most you can hope for is that other people are finding some kind of joy or pride or excitement or anything really in holding the tangible thing that you once made.
Yeah, and then also what I guess I was thinking about when it came to it was the stuff you do online seems to be a little bit more political, and this seems to be a lot more personal. Although obviously it's political throughout, because well, that's what writing is. But I was just wondering if going into this you did like approach it with a bit of a lighter heart, or I guess I wasn't too familiar with a lot of your Mail and Guardian stuff, so I'm not too sure if your weekly column, well, was that weekly or was that monthly?
Weekly. It was weekly.
So sorry, like what I guess I should just find out, what were those columns like? Were they a bit more humorous, or were you tackling more tough topics?
They ran the gamut. I mean, most of them, a lot of them were political, but like social political stuff. So
Yeah.
gender activism, equal pay for women, feminism, gender-based violence, online abuse, stuff like that. And then as I sort of grew into my career at the Mail and Guardian, they became like more political. So, I would dabble in a little bit of satire about the EFF, for example, or, the DA, or Helen, I almost said Helen Mirren, she wishes, Helen Ziller, stuff like that. And just the more, I guess, the standardized orthodox version of politics, in our day-to-day lives, and the governing of our bodies. And when I say bodies, I mean actual, just the entities of our life, not our actual human bodies. But yeah, it's been everything. It's been social justice. It's been humor. It's been satire. It's been international politics. It's been long form interviews and articles, everything. And then I think when it came to the book, the book sort of just became this laundry bin of all these things I touched on previously in my short-lived career. Or it's not short-lived. I think it's still living, hopefully. But just an expansion of that, and also just a little bit of liberty, a little bit of liberty that I gave myself, that I took for myself. And I said, you know what, like, people are interesting, and we're made of so many different things, and we're interested in so many different things, and some of them are silly and some of them are not, but they're all interesting. And I just want to give myself the freedom to be able to write whatever the hell I want in a hopefully very interesting way.
Yeah, well, I kind of got that when I got to the dustbin part in particular. Yeah. I was like, you're clearly just having some fun now.
I'll actually give you an example. That is so silly. A dustbin, 2 chapters on dustbins, right? Is so silly. But there's a woman who works for the World Health Organization in the long COVID task force. She's a massive deal, who is currently reading or has read that chapter and sitting and looking at her dustbin in Geneva going, oh my God, she's right. I hate dustbins. I can never find the right one. So this is a human problem.
Exactly. That's the thing. I even connected to it. I was like, I've been there. Like, my current dustbin definitely isn't the right dustbin for me either. So it was just one of those things of like, yeah, I'm going to have to go shopping soon.
It's honestly like dustbins is just like hitting rock bottom. Ours the other day just broke for absolutely no reason. The spring kind of just came up, so like it popped off. So the soft top close thing doesn't work anymore. And I've honestly just given up. I'm just like, okay, well, this is how we live now. That's fine.
That's exactly how it gets. Once that thing breaks, it's just like, cool, I guess we're just lifting the lid now and washing our hands afterwards. Uh, so how did you actually come up with a lot of the stuff that you decided to put in the book? And were there essays that you left out, or was it kind of cool, these are the things I want to touch on, here it is?
I mean, the book was 3 drafts. It kept evolving.
Okay.
Like it wasn't the book it was supposed to be. Well, the book that I wrote, or the book that is now a thing, isn't the book that I started to write. Like at first, it was going to be a portrait of different women from the Cape Flats who are kind of like unseen, because we always
Sure, yeah.
forego the fact that we live in actually very matriarchal pockets of societies, and the power in that matriarchy is often like overlooked because of stuff like gang violence and gender violence and that kind of thing. But women have been doing the hard work, as we all know, for a very long time. But in many societies, we just don't see it. We just don't see how matriarchal these societies are. So there was that. And then sort of like, I don't know, midway, well, when I was almost done with all those, say 3/4 of the way through doing all those interviews with those women. And the book evolved again because I did a Cape Flats piece on gang violence for Tortoise Media in London. And that just kind of like blew up, and it became this whole culture war of, what gives you the right to speak on behalf of that community, blah, 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 whatever, because there was no understanding with what I like now to call the woke police, that there's a difference between, not all journalism is a diary entry. Not all journalism is autobiographical. Journalism is storytelling. And then I started to really dig deep into like who I was and who people think they are, and how little we actually know historically and genealogically about where we come from and what we are, and what gives us the right to make these bold statements about other people as people of color, and the organizational structure of apartheid and certain systems that were designed for us to kill each other so that they didn't have to, and how we still exist in these systems. And so then I started to write a book called The Woke Choke, which was going to, explore these themes. And then
Helen would love that.
she would. When I was done writing The Woke Choke, in between all of that, my dad died. We got our son, who we adopted. I got COVID, long COVID for 23 weeks. A bunch of stuff happened. Like I got neurological symptoms that I still suffer from. And I honestly thought I was writing a book that was making sense, but was making no sense at all, because my brain was not working. Like it wasn't working, and I didn't know it wasn't working. So I had to trash that book. And 180,000 words later, we got Here's the Thing. So yeah, I think, if I speak about it now, I think Here's the Thing, each chapter is a story of chapters that were supposed to happen in another book but didn't.
Yeah, because you do bring a lot of that up basically in the beginning, especially the stuff of being dragged online. And I was just going to bring that up as being a thing. The biggest difference, I guess, between stuff in print and stuff online is stuff in print you probably don't get as much flack for.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good and a bad thing, because like on the one hand, I just feel so bad because the book market is so terrible. Like people can't afford to buy books. I mean, we can't afford to do a lot of things at the moment, and I think I've always fallen last on the list in terms of priorities, but now they're like super last. I mean, they're off the list completely.
And
I remember
how do you get? Sorry, I wanted to just quickly check. Do you know how to get your book in libraries and stuff like that? Because that could be an avenue.
Oh yeah, but people donate them to libraries, and there's a guy who pre-ordered like basically 30 books beforehand, and he's lovely, and he just went to schools and donated a bunch to school libraries and
that's
other
amazing.
libraries, people communities and stuff like that. And it generally works like that. But I'm being serious. Like books are just too expensive. Like so.
Trust me, I know.
When you talk about the reaction online and the reaction to actual written, hard work on paperback, it's not that there isn't any. It's just that there can't be, because no one can afford to buy them. When I was waiting for an author copy, I actually contacted my author, and I was like, my publisher, and I was like, please can you let me know when I get my author copy, because that one's free and I can't afford to go out and buy my own book.
You're not
So
the first writer I've heard say stuff like that.
yeah,
It's like, I mean, I'm someone who typically buys my books at secondhand stores. That is how I get a lot of it. And then South African stuff, I do try my best like once a month to get something, but it is inaccessible. And then I guess a problem with that becomes the only people who engage with your work are people within the industry. Is that something you're seeing with this?
that is something that happens. People who engage within the industry. Yeah, I gotta say though, like with here's the thing, I've had really, really, really been so blessed in terms of like the publicity and the interviews and the stuff that's come out of it, and the reviews by people like Bill Haji and Eusebius McKaiser, and even being on Eusebius' podcast. And, so I think I myself personally, as a person, have perhaps tapped out of the noise.
Sure.
And I'm not using noise in like a negative way. I'm just, maybe the conversation is a better word. Have tapped out of the conversation just because there's so many moving pieces in my life right now. But I think the discourse about it is out there, and it is happening. Else there would not have been a great sort of effort from people to engage with it through reviews or podcasts or interviews or stuff like this. Actually, yeah.
Okay, so we were having technical difficulties, and you were saying that you know the struggles when it comes to podcasting. So you had a podcast? I didn't know this.
Oh, so we did a podcast with Daily Maverick, well, rather for Daily Maverick.
Oh yes.
Called Don't Shoot the Messenger.
Yes. Okay, I remember seeing that. I haven't listened to it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. It's stopped now. I think it only went for 2 or 3 seasons or something. But yeah, when we were having technical difficulties while doing this interview, it took me back to a place where I was like, I could have thrown a computer through a wall. Honestly, I could have been like, technology is not helping.
Yeah, it's weird because, like I was saying to you, this is like being a gift almost because of the pandemic, like using Zencaster and being able to do stuff online. And I guess the other gift I got from the pandemic was like meditating and learning to like, just go with the flow and not get caught up in stuff. So I needed those two things to come at the same time, because if I didn't have it, I think I would be like you and wanting to throw my toys out the cot, because there's definitely been some interviews early on. I remember when I was chatting to Moonchild and like things just started cutting out, and I was just like, come on, like, like you don't really want to be like having technical difficulties with someone who we worked with Beyonce.
Exactly. No, it's super frustrating, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's worth it. The story is always worth it.
Yeah, actually, speaking of like people, well, famous people, I see that you've had dinner with Arundhati Roy. When did that happen? How did that happen?
I have had dinner with her, yes, and I'll never forget that. I think it's the best experience of my life. I was on a panel with her at UCT. She was in South Africa to promote her new book, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. And
oh, cool. I haven't read that.
I was promoting Sorry Not Sorry, my first book, at the same time. And so Penguin asked that I be on a panel with her. And then obviously Rebecca Davis, my wife, was the discussant. And the night before, we got to have sushi together and just chat. And yeah, it was a rad time. It was so lovely. And she's just such a force, just such a powerful woman without even having to say anything, without having to open her mouth. She's just gentle and powerful at the same time. It was amazing.
I can imagine. I mean, I've read The God of Small Things, and that definitely hit home. So I can't imagine like the mind that actually came up with that. And I haven't read her other work, but yeah, that one was pretty seminal in my life.
Oh yeah, me as well. I read it at least once or twice a year, every single year. Like, she's my favorite author of all time. So when that happened, wow. I was just like, I've got to be dreaming. This can't be real.
That is so fucking cool. I've gotten to meet some people who've made music that like I really love, and that it's moments like that. Like, it's so weird, like especially when you are also a creator, to still get caught up in like that fandom, and that like you did something that affected my life, and getting to just like actually embrace their essence is something that like I hope everyone gets to cherish it like at least once in their lives.
Oh, 100%. They always say, never meet your heroes. And I honestly believe that to be true. Like, I honestly believe you should never meet your heroes, because then they almost become too real. Like, people become too real, and everyone has flaws and all that kind of thing. And I just want to worship at the altar. But in the case of Arundhati Roy, it was the very, very opposite. Like, I still don't want to meet my heroes, but I am so very, very glad to have met her, because I think just being in conversation with her and at just a normal dinner, like a normal human being, just kind of affirmed that, this there's a greatness that comes kind of like from elsewhere,
Yeah.
and not all our heroes do have it, but she most certainly did.
Wow. With your first book, what were the challenges that you faced with coming up with that? Because I know a lot of people, when they write their first book, they say they'll never write a second. So were you in a similar situation?
I just love to write. So, I mean, when
Okay.
I got the opportunity to write the first book, I was stoked. I was so excited, and I knew exactly what it was going to be about, and it was a lot easier than this book, because there were so few hurdles just in terms of my personal life, that I had to manage, and I was just a machine. I just went at it, and it was the most wonderful experience ever. And a lot of people do, like, a lot of people write their first book and they go like, I'll never write another book ever again. Like, I'm done. Like, that's it. This was
Yeah.
not me or whatever.
And then
And
they
and
do.
I'm just not like that. Like, I think if I don't write, I'll die. Like, I think
But when
there's a
did you
standard.
realize that though? Because you didn't start off doing that, as far
No,
as I
but I was very,
understand.
very young. I was very young. My grandfather and I he used to give me little topics, like just anything, when I was about 6 or 7 years old, to write on. And
Oh,
he would
okay,
say,
so it's
go
lifelong.
write a story on this, yeah. And then I'd go and I'd write a story on it, and I'd come back and do it. And this went on for years and years and years. And I'd always known, I'd always known that I'd wanted to be a writer, but it's just something that you're not supposed to think you want to be,
Sure.
or you're not supposed to think is something you can be, like a person being like me. Like, it's not something for us, it's not something we do. And yeah, I think, yeah, people always say to me, like, like, what next? Like, what are you going to do next? Like, because I think book writing almost to an extent has become like a project, like an assignment, because we're all so busy doing so many different things. Like, we're writing books, we're doing art installations, we're being influencers, or we're going off to study something else. And, we've got day jobs and night jobs, and in between all of that, some of us are writing and whatever. But that's the only thing I have. For me, that's it. For me, it's writing.
So is there another book in the works, or are you going to take a break?
There's never a break, because 90% of writing is thinking, and we're all thinking all the time, Bob, don't you know?
I'm trying not to. That's what the meditation's for.
But yeah, there is something I'm pushing myself to the edge of. I'm just finding the will to jump off, and the will is not jumping off is not the will to write, because I do have the will to write. Jumping off is just fighting the bear. Yeah.
Okay. And by fighting the bear, you mean sitting down at the typewriter and actually
No, by
coming up with the
fighting
words?
the bear, I mean, yeah, taking on a whole new, different road, finding a whole
Okay.
new mountain to climb. Yeah.
Okay. Are you someone who ever does like get like scared when you sit down at the typewriter or the keyboard?
Um, Scared. No, I don't. I mean, uh, I don't particularly like my own work. I don't know what I write always, or it's not like I'm sitting there going, "Oh, I'm so brilliant, I'm just sucking the side of my thumb," or whatever. It comes so easy. It doesn't. But I just love it so much that it's just always such a privilege and an honor to be able to sit and type something or write something. And so it doesn't scare me to sit down and have to write. It scares me having written. Let's put it that way.
Why?
Because then it doesn't belong to you anymore, does it?
I guess. Although I guess like it's so weird because so many writers that I've chatted to are the exact opposite of you. They hate writing, love having written, love having a body of work out there for people to ingest and have their name on it, but the actual process of writing can be a struggle. Whereas for you, you hate the part where it's handed over.
It's definitely a struggle. I mean, like you bleed over your pages all the time, and you kill your darlings, and you find the things in your work that you've written that you perhaps love so much and you think is so good. And I'm one of those people, when I find that sentence, I'm like, that gets deleted immediately, because
I would never. Like, I treasure those. That's like, yeah, I'm the exact opposite. I'll build an
every
entire
single
article
time
around one good line.
I will do it. I will do it from anything as small as if I'm tasked with a book review to writing an entire book. I will find in every single thing I write, every single paragraph, chapter, essay, whatever, I will find the thing that I'm proud of writing off most in that thing, like in a sentence, and just delete it, because I never want to feel as though I've done my best, because I always want there to be more.
Why is that? Like, because that's kind of interesting to me. Like that need, because I mean, don't you think like you will always just be striving towards your best no matter what? Like maybe you've made your best already, but you're
That's
still
the
going to
thing,
strive
right?
towards something better.
If you're striving to your best no matter what, then the best is always yet to come. So why hold on to it when you think it's that moment?
I guess I just love like I don't know good sentences and like that kind of stuff just brings me joy, But I guess you still have that joy of creating that sentence, and like there's always more joy in knowing that nobody else is going to get to read it. Or am I misreading that?
I don't even read them. I don't know where they are. They're literally in the trash. I literally delete them.
Wow, that's
The
something
joy,
I
I guess the joy in the game is in trying to write them without knowing them that is in trying to write them without knowing that I've written them before, and to write them and to not delete them because they're not as good as they were before anymore. And now there's something better.
okay, I get that.
Yeah.
You have an issue with influencers who call themselves writers. Why? I'm just
Because
wanting an
writing
answer,
is
to be
hard
honest.
work. Writing is hard. Writing is a 24/7 job. 24 to 24. Is that to say 24/7? Yeah. And it's
24/7,
not
yeah.
just. Yeah, I think we've just come to a weird period in time where it's amazing to see that people's ideas come to life through a page, but it's also just it's personal. It hurts me to see that anyone can just write whatever they want, and people will. There are scavengers out there. There are scavengers, and there are people who are willing to just swoop in and just take up work that shouldn't be on a page, that shouldn't be published, just for the sake of doing it because that's what's cool now. And
So that's something that I haven't seen, like personally, like the whole like being a writer is cool. So like which circles, or I mean, I just like, yeah, what's your experience
there's
with
a
this?
huge misconception. There's a very, very huge misconception that being a writer is cool. I think if you go to enough book festivals, you'll realize that, and it's a very awkward, uncomfortable, strange crowd to be observing. But there are people out there, and there's lots of them who think that being a writer is a very, very, very cool thing, and it's not a cool thing; it's a cruel thing.
Yeah.
But it's a thing that we love, and we will. Like I said, if I can't do it, I will die.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I like for me, I'd always blame the movie Almost Famous. Like that's why like I got into music journalism and like did that
Oh,
for
that's one
a
of my
while.
favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, same. And I mean, I love so much about it, but like it is just to me that's what made like the whole idea of being a music journalist really cool. And then doing it is 10% of it is like that. And the rest of it is just nightmare headaches, admin, and yeah, just dealing with fans who hate you because you gave an honest opinion. And it's never the fantasy is never like the reality is never lives up to the fantasy. And you've then got to learn and realize that whether or not that's actually for you, if the reality of the thing, if the hard work is, for you, Like you have to actually enjoy the hard work, which you seem to actually do. You really seem to get joy out of the writing and not just being someone who people see as having written.
No, so that's, I mean, and I see that's so different with my wife, for example, is a writer as well, and a journalist as well, and our approach to our work is both so very different because she is excellent at what she does, and I could never do the kinds of stories she does, in the
Because
way
she
that
does
she
like
does it.
in-depth journalism.
Yeah, and it means talking to a lot of people a lot of the time. And I and she, she's just, I think she's the greatest journalist in the country, to be honest. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, but it's slim pickings out there for sometimes.
Oh,
But
shots fired, but fair enough.
no, I didn't mean it that way. I just mean, like, our media industry is so burdened by lack of funds and lack of funding, and
Yeah.
we've got so much talent, but no one can get paid, and it's really hard out there. But the way she approaches writing and the way I approach writing are just two different things. Like, the process is so different. Like, the quality of work that she comes up with afterwards that is delivered is magnificent, and it is, otherworldly. Her writing is otherworldly, but her process and her system and just how much she actually dislikes the process of writing, the struggle of writing, is so different to mine, because I'm just like, yeah, I'm just, I'm gonna just like toil through this, man. I'm gonna write this now. I'm gonna write. And for me it's finish to end, and for her it's like start and stop and start and stop and start and stop, and yeah.
Oh wait, are you someone who just like can just get it all out in like one sitting?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that's my final draft, but yeah, I can.
Damn. Like I'm so jealous. Like I'm definitely it takes a couple days to figure out what I'm actually trying to say.
No, but I think by the time, like, I sit down and when I start writing, I have to finish. It's just something that I've exercised, like, actually physically practice that as an exercise. That when I start writing something, whether it's a column or an essay or whatever, long form piece of journalism, and I have all the information, I've done all the research. Once I start, I have to finish. And then I'll go back to it and rework it and redo whatever I need to do or whatever. But once I start, I have to finish.
When did that start? Like, was that when you started with Mail and Guardian and that because you had to hit
No,
deadlines, or?
I just play these random games with writing, like, all the time. Like, so when I was at Mail and Guardian, I think just before Mail and Guardian even, when I just finished my honours year in journalism, I used to have one of those hourglasses.
Sure.
They weren't an hourglass, they were a half hourglass. And so I would set a goal for myself. I would say, I need to write a story, not fiction, non-fiction. I need to write a non-fiction story, beginning to end, 300 words by the time this half hourglass is done. So, like, in 30 minutes. And then I did
don't
it.
know if I should be terrified or like impressed, because that to me sounds.
And then, I mean, I obviously couldn't do it, like, I wasn't good at it in the beginning, but then I just started doing it and doing it and doing it. And then the numbers upped and upped and upped. And I was like, okay, today I'm going to go for 400. And then the next year I was like, okay, my goal this year is 500 in half an hour. And it's got to be good, and it's got to make sense, and it's got to need as little editing as possible. And the most I've gotten up to is 1,200 words in half an hour. But then it's not perfect. It does need,
Yeah.
it does need work.
That sheesh. Like I'm actually like I feel like a fraud almost, like, because that is literally like training. You're going to gym there. That's like writing
Yeah.
gym.
That's what I used to call it. I used to call it writing gym. I'm going to a writing gym. But I'm just that kind of person. Like, I just love gamifying things. You gamify anything, it's fun. And I don't like doing anything unless it's fun. So yeah.
Damn, that's maybe I'll give that a try sometime, because I'm definitely behind on some newsletters, as the listeners would know. Because unless I've got like an actual deadline from somebody else, I can definitely drag my feet a little bit. But I also wanted to check in with you with this book. how was the relationship with your editor? How much was it back and forth? You know, how much of their fingerprints are in things, and
Oh,
what's
I just trusted. So I moved from Penguin to Pan Mac for this book, and they were just all so lovely and just so amazing. And so was everyone at Penguin. I mean, they're beautiful, beautiful people. And I loved both teams a lot. But it was so interesting to work with this team because this was the team predominantly of Black women, except for Andrea. She's my publisher, and she's white. And it was just, yeah, it was just really, really nice, and it was a lot of very in-depth reading from their part and a lot of effort and a lot of, you could just really see they were engaging with the work. And I'm one of those writers who, like, I thrive off criticism. I absolutely, like, I need it. I need it to live. And it's so important to me to say, like, why did you say this in this sentence? Or why did you say it this way?
Yeah.
Because it also helps me clarify my thoughts and think, oh, wait, that actually, that even in terms of word economy, like, that's not necessary at all. I don't have to say it like that, or yeah, like it was really like I came up against a team of women who were just really engaged, extremely clever, very bold, and who just, I think, made me a better thinker about things.
And that's what an editor needs to do. That's so great to hear, because like with certain online writing that I've done, there's been very little editorial, and then other times editors have really helped guide the pieces together. And I've learned that you actually want oversight when it comes to writing, because it does just help make it so much better.
Yeah, like when I do the long form stuff for like international publications for long narrative journalism and narrative storytelling and whatever, there's so much back and forth and so much of like, sitting with the editor and like sort of like thinking through the story and building the story and, getting that feedback. And that feedback is so important because a lot of writers don't like criticism, but criticism is what makes you a better writer.
100%.
And I enjoy that the most. Like, it blows my mind. Like, I can't wait for it. I'm like, oh, when am I getting it?
Yeah, I definitely these days love notes. Like early on in my career, I didn't necessarily appreciate them. And then I saw the difference basically in my work. Like it's just, yeah. Well, it was actually going to lead me into what I wanted to talk about was, do you find now with online stuff that there is less of that and that does impact work?
I think, you do reach a certain stride or a certain rhythm in your writing or style of writing or something. Some things are consistent. So, for example, my EWN column is weekly. It's consistent. It's been going on for 5 years now.
Yeah.
We all have a good relationship. We all have a vibe. There's a flow, like, whatever the case is. If something needs to be challenged or called on or re-exercised or re-engaged with, whatever, there will be space for that and time for that. But mostly it's just like a well-oiled engine.
Sure.
And it just runs and it does its thing and I do my thing and everyone knows what they're doing. And it's just a very, very beautiful machine that just goes and goes and goes. And hopefully it'll go for a very long time because they've been extremely good to me. And they're a very, very good organization. But with other, I've kind of taken a step back from South African media a little bit just since writing this book, just for personal reasons, because I am a freelancer and there are things that I want to write and explore and grow in terms of my writing and grow in terms of my toolbox and my skill set and whatever. And I haven't found anywhere that kind of would be willing to sort of take that on, or that I'm confident has the resources without robbing anyone else of resources to be able to say, okay, let's do this, let's do New Yorker style features in a really, really good, proper way, the way they're supposed to be done, and just sit with this and leave you and let you sit with your work and like do this thing. And there's just no money for it as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to get to, is the situation with online media these days is the lack of money to invest in stories. So it does limit the kind of stories that get told, especially here at the moment. It's a big problem that we have because there are so many South African writers at the moment who, especially with print being less of an option, don't have as much space to write the articles like you're talking about, like the New Yorker style profiles, when they've got the skill set to do that. And I do feel like we're actually missing out so much at the moment with the change to online media, because you look at magazines and stuff back in the day, you really did get to read good stuff, and now it's all just SEO based nonsense.
Yeah, it is that. But I mean, also, there are online places that do like really, really good stuff as well. I mean, for example, let's take the New Yorker, right? It's a like a archaic, it's a stalwart print publication, but their online offering is no less. It's still as good and still as qualitative and all that kind of thing. I just think that in South Africa we've been trained to use online in a certain way.
Sure.
And having run a media newsroom myself, and being the deputy digital editor of the Mail Guardian, at that time that was the right way to run the newsroom, and it worked, and it was good, and it was good storytelling as well. But that's kind of just where we've stayed. We've stayed there, and people are still speaking a 2014, 2015 online news language when we're in 2022 in South Africa.
And also still paying the same rates.
Yeah, or less.
Yeah, that's actually sadly true, which the pandemic definitely didn't help with. Like, it just, because of all those print publications shutting down, it just flooded the market with people. And you've also got youngsters who are trying to get in the game, like you're saying, influencing type people who will work for a lot less just to get their name published. And yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a nightmare for everyone. It's like, I think to be a writer and to be unemployed, as I am currently at the moment, is honestly, it's heartbreaking, because like you just want to do one thing every day, every single day for the rest of your life, as do many, many other people in many, many other fields. But honestly, you look around and you're like, there's nowhere to put this.
Yeah, that's the struggle I've been facing. Although, thankfully, lately I've found other work, so I can write a bit more for myself. But that also has to say, without the deadlines and without an editor and without someone to pitch stories to, it does slow, for me personally, my production down quite a bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so I'm going to head into the last question. This is a question I've been asking every guest, and it is, what is a big mistake that you have learned an important lesson from?
Ooh, what is a big mistake I have learned an important lesson from? Oh God, there are so many, but let's go with sure, there's so many. Let's go with a big mistake that I've learned an important lesson from is, no matter how much anything in you is willing yourself to say something, and no matter how much your brain is reacting against you wanting to say that thing, say it anyway, because the lesson will be learned, but your voice will at least be heard.
Wow. That's really interesting. Yeah. What was the mistake that you made that you learned that from?
Oh, and I'm taking that to my grave. In fact, it'll be on my tombstone. So if you visit my grave one day, you can read it on my tombstone.
Oh, that's a call to action for the listener in the future. Cool. Thank you so much, Haji. This has been a really interesting chat, despite the South African internet trying to plague us.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me.
No, absolute pleasure. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what you do with the next book and seeing what bear it is that you're actually trying to tackle.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bob. Have a great day, and thanks for this interview.
You too. Cheers, yo.
Bye.
So that was Haji. What do you think? You enjoy that chat? Well, if you did, go check out a book. Here's The Thing, which is available through Pam Macmillan, who actually helped set this up. The PR team got in touch, sent me the book, and I was like, yeah, I definitely would love to chat to Haji. That sounds great. So yeah, sometimes the PR thing, I know I complain sometimes that PR people don't know what the fuck they're doing, but sometimes they actually do, and it leads to great conversations like the one you just heard. Of course, there were some technical difficulties there. We did have data issues, so if any of the edits sounded a little weird, that's why. Yeah, so that was that. It was fucking, yeah, such a cool chat. And I am actually up in Joburg. I edited this thing on my shitty fucking laptop. I had to reinstall Windows because I've been using Linux for a minute now on this thing because it's only got like 8 gigs of RAM, which used to be a lot. And it's only got like a 2 gigahertz processor, which also used to be a lot. I think my first computer had like fucking like, I don't know, like 256 megabytes of RAM. Yeah, and I think I had like a couple gigs on the hard drive. We have certainly come a long way, but I will still complain about having to edit on this laptop. Not that I had to, but I am up in Joburg, and I wanted to get this thing out to you, so I made some sacrifices, you know? I fucking reinstalled Windows on here. I was doing a virtual machine, but that was too slow, and blah, 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 blah. Bunch of things that most of you probably don't even care about. But I have been up in Josie for this last week. It's been quite nice, just chilling with my mom and my grand mostly. Like, I haven't really seen anyone except for Takunda Bima, who you will be hearing next week on this podcast. He is the guy behind the Joburg International Comedy Festival. He also started Podium, which is a comedy management company that helped launch the careers of people like Trevor Noah, Kagiso Ladiga, Lisa Gola. So, you know, some pretty big names. David Kabuka. And who else was on this Russian? Fuck. It's bad that I forgot. Oh, Eugene Koza, who I would like to get all those people on the podcast. The ones I haven't yet. And some of them are actually in the works, maybe. So, yeah, we get to chat to Kunda next week. Such a great fucking chat. I really left that one feeling like, yeah, just motivated. So you can look forward to that. And then, yeah, this weekend I am actually going to go watch Waylene do some comedy. She's got a one-person show happening tonight. And then tomorrow I'm going to go to Smoking Kills because the Pussy Party brought in a new sound. Cats have a gig going on, and I see some of the other radio people up here. So it'll be cool to meet some of the people who I do a radio show for, which you can check out on Monday. I think it's been moved to 6 o'clock now. Used to be every third Monday at 2 p.m., but now it's going to be an evening show. So you can look out for that on Monday. And what else? Oh yeah, I did a gig last night. I went to a gig that I was billed on, but turns out the audience didn't show up. Still had a decent night. Got to chat to Punch, who is, yeah, like a comedian who I've seen online. You know, I've seen some of his stuff on YouTube and that. And he's in a Netflix TV show now, according to the other guy, Mo. I can't remember his surname right now, but I met a youngster in the scene. He's apparently been doing stuff on Instagram and all of that, and yeah, one of the COVID comics. You know, like when the rest of us, I say the rest of us, but like when people like me were just chilling, he was making moves. And yeah, I got to meet him, got to meet Punch, got to chat, and just met Punch's girlfriend as well, I think girlfriend, Daneo, and we just chilled. We ate and drank and lamented, you know, our career choices. But all in all, I still had a good time, even though we didn't perform. I fucking practiced twice in the afternoon. I did my set twice. That's 20-minute sets that I practiced twice. It's 40 minutes of my day. But hey, that's never gonna go to waste. And yeah, man, I'm a little disappointed, but fuck, this is how it goes. You know, you roll with the punches with this industry. And yeah, I got nothing else to say, man. Clearly, I don't have drawing power in the east of Joburg. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? I'm gonna head on out soon because I've got to get back to helping organize stuff with the Point Waterfront Arts Festival. So you should come check that out. It's gonna be happening from the 8th to the 11th of September. Do you remember? And with that all being said and out the way, it is time for us to get into the shout outs. Now, if you're new here, you probably don't know that each and every single week on this podcast, we give a shout out to the titular titles tier over at patreon.com/almostperfect. As a tier, it's a $10 tier, it's the top tier, and a bunch of other things that begin with the T and create alliteration, etc., etc. But yeah, basically the whole gist of the thing is you give me $10 a month, I give you a bunch of free shit every now and again, and most importantly, I'll shout you out right here on the Almost Perfect podcast. So shout outs to Rousseau, who is the storage clerk of Subtle Heresies in the Lesser Overberg region. Shout outs to Russell Grant, our Far East correspondent. Shout outs to Neil Green, our key grip. Shout outs to Karan Sleman, the Almost Perfect hedge fund manager. Shout outs to Vishendra Naidu, our spiritual advisor. Shout outs to Riz Ventura, the director of purchasing. Shout outs to Julian, who is our king. Shout outs to Karan Chetty, the assistant to the regional manager. Shout outs to Catherine Jenkins, the inevitable ruler of the universe, and Queen Swifty. Shout outs to Stephen Olivier, our executive producer. And shout outs to our benefactor, who is anonymous. Of course, shout outs to Damian Roots, who's not a patron. Patron over at patreon.com/almost perfect. Instead, he is the man who made this wonderful bed music here underneath you and the awesome as fuck intro song you heard at the beginning of the show. Lastly, shout outs to you, and I will catch you on the flip side.